Thank you for listening to the show on Really Big Something Channel. October 20th, 2017.
2:05 here on the great WRKO. All right, my friends, it is a huge local story. I mean, it's everywhere, and it's starting now to go viral and go national. So let me ask you the Kuhner Country poll question du jour, as the French would say, of the day, sponsored by Bill Kelly Financial Services. Should the Bridgewater Elementary School apologize for the photo? Should the elementary school in Bridgewater apologize for their photo? If you believe the answer is yes, text the letter A to 680-680. If you believe the answer is no, this is really political correctness gone insane, text the letter B to 680-680. As always, you can vote online at WRKO.com. So for those of you that didn't hear about it, here is now the latest. It is an absolute, there's a growing outrage. It is all over Boston, all over Massachusetts. So, Mitchell Elementary School in Bridgewater is part of a enrichment history program that they want to help educate, young students, young kids about the Pilgrims, and especially the pivotal role played by Massachusetts. And so they teamed up with Plymouth. Sorry, I just got something stuck in my throat. With Plymouth Plantation, which is a museum. So in fact, it tells really an iconic story of the Plymouth colony. It's a well-known museum. They started off with a couple of English cottages, a fort on Plymouth's historic waterfront. Anyway, they've expanded it now. They've got a craft center. They've got barns. They've got a Plymouth grist mill. Now, why is this important? The Plymouth Plantation is about educating students and the wider public about what life was like in the 1600s. The 1600s. The clothes that they wore, the garments, how they cooked their food, how they had to survive. And it tells the story of both the English settlers, the original colonists, as well as the Native Americans. And frankly, it's a very professional operation. The people that work there know their stuff, and they're very serious about doing it. Well, the Plymouth Plantation has, as I said, an educational program, and they have done this thousands of times through hundreds and hundreds of schools, whereby they show up and they try to teach the little bambinos what life was like in the 1600s. And so an education instructor from Plymouth Plantation showed up at the Mitchell Elementary School in Bridgewater. And she's, of course, dressed, and I mean, maybe I know this because I taught American history, in clearly 17th century clothing. I mean, you can't mistake it. It's clearly clothing from the 1600s. And, of course, she has other people around her. The students are asked to participate. And, of course, they're dressed as well as the way younger kids would at that time. And one of the girls is an 8-year-old girl in the classroom. She volunteered, hey, can I be part of this? And so they said yes. And one of the things that was done, frankly, in the 17th century, was that the younger kids, 6, 7, 8, 9 years of age, remember, you're surrounded literally by wilderness in incredibly harsh conditions. You have hostile Native American tribes. There are constant raids on the plantation, on this fort. It's a struggle for survival. There are wild animals everywhere. So the custom was to have straps around the young kids, what they called lead strings. And this was done for several reasons. It was to keep the young children literally from wandering away, so they don't get, ambushed or killed or eaten or lost or whatever. And another one was also to help them to learn how to walk. And so they're basically straps that you put on the two shoulders in the garments. Now, a young 8-year-old girl asked, hey, this is cool. You're all dressed up. Can I participate? This poor educator, and I feel very sorry for this woman, who I bet doesn't have a racist bone in her body. In fact, is probably so colorblind that she couldn't even see why this would, the Moonbats would blow this thing up into the scandal of the century. Says, of course, sweetheart, come. And so she gets dressed up, and they put the straps on her shoulder. There's one problem. The girl happens to be black, African American. So the picture, the photo that was released by the school has a white woman, the instructor from the Plymouth Plantation, along with a couple of other white girls standing up beside her, and this young African American, the 8-year-old student, on the ground, like I guess kneeling or sitting on the ground, with the two other older children. This is how they used to do it, because the older ones would hold the straps of the young child, holding the two straps coming from the shoulders. They have done this thousands of times at hundreds of different schools. What the instructor saw was a young 8-year-old girl that just wanted to participate. No. Apparently, the father of the girl, one of the parents, but it looks like the father of that young 8-year-old girl, complained. Said this slavery. This was racism. This was playing upon the worst possible stereotype imaginable, that this, according to him, was degrading and demeaning. Social media exploded when the photo was then posted. And one of the parents, in fact, Andrea St. Clair, was apparently so stunned. She saw this picture on Facebook, this photo, that she literally drove to the school. She ran off to the school, picked up her child early. According to her, quote, it seems like enslavement of a person. Even the color of the child has nothing to do with it. So the two straps from the shoulders, according to her, that's slavery, that's enslavement. It's even worse that the girl happens to be black. And then another parent came out and said, I can't imagine anyone meant any harm, but the basic fact is someone wasn't thinking. Then another parent came out and said, well, if you don't understand the context, then this looks like slavery. It's disgusting. Well, that's the point. You don't understand the context. And the context is everything. It's about life that the Pilgrims experienced in 17th century, i.e. 1600s, colonial America. That's it. That's what this is. Nothing more and nothing less. And if you know that there wasn't any slavery at Plymouth Plantation, that in fact, there weren't any blacks at Plymouth Plantation. And so here's an instructor from the Plymouth Plantation Museum who is an educator, who says, sure, sweetheart, you want to participate? You want to be the little girl that they have the straps on? Go ahead. So the father gets enraged because he knows nothing what he's talking about, because now in modern day America, thanks to Barack Hussein Obama, it is race, race, race. Everything is seen through the color and lens of race. Everything is race. Everything. And it's not just race. Everything is racism and everything is slavery. And so now, because of this huge explosion of people who know nothing about the 17th century, know nothing about Plymouth Plantation, probably never went to the museum, know nothing how people dressed, know nothing about that they did use those straps, those lead strings to guide and, I guess, rein in, control their kids, and the circumstances of life in 1600s colonial America. Now they're yelling and screaming. They want this poor instructor fired. They want her career destroyed. They want heads to roll, and they know nothing of what they speak of. Literally nothing. And so school officials are now issuing apology after apology. Superintendent Derek Swenson issued a statement, quote, "It was never the intent of the lesson to demean or degrade any one person or group. The Bridgewater Raynham Regional School District sincerely apologizes to the students, staff, and community at large for this unfortunate incident." So apparently then the parents of the student, the young 8-year-old girl, say they have met with administrators. The spokesperson for Plymouth Plantation, for some reason, they've also apologized. And, everybody's apologizing. Now, this is the exact same program, by the way, that they've taken to I don't know how many classrooms across Massachusetts. That's how the instructor is dressed, because that's how they dressed in the 17th century. That's how the young boys or girls are dressed, because that's how they were dressed in the 17th century. And the youngest ones have those lead strings or straps, because that's what they did in the 17th century. Well, I don't like the way it looks on a picture. Well, taken out of context, it looks really demeaning and degrading. Taken out of context, it looks like they're enslaving the black girl, Jeff. Yeah, but now that you know the context, what's the problem? Okay, now, A, if, you knew a little bit about history, you wouldn't be insulted, number one. But number two, now that you know the context, what's the problem? And I got to say this. I mentioned this at our pre-show meeting with both our PD, Michael, and with Brittany. I said, you know what I find incredible? I said, I really have to say, first of all, the country, I think, is so sick of this race garbage and almost exhausted by it. It just doesn't end. But I said, you know what I find really stunning? Is that all of this has really exploded after we've had the first African-American president in American history. I mean, I want you to think about it just objectively. Whatever you think about Obama, his policies, just objectively. Here is the United States having, for the first time in its history, a black man reach the highest office in the land. Literally, the highest office in the land and the highest office in the world. You're the most powerful man in the world. 2 terms, not one, 2 terms. America is the only white majority nation in history to have elected a black person as president. Let me repeat that. America is the only white majority nation in history to have elected a black person as president. How racist can you be? I mean, just objectively, how racist can you be? And so you would think that this would have put all of the race garbage behind us. It's just gotten worse. And the other thing that's gotten worse, slavery was abolished in 1865. And I said this to both Michael and Brittany. I said, have you noticed? We had less talk about slavery, racism, and oppression 40 years ago, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago. In other words, the more distance we put between us and when slavery was abolished, instead of the problem getting better, it gets worse. Like at this rate, no, I'm not kidding. I mean, what are we going to do in 2065? Once we hit 200 years that we abolish slavery, what are we going to do? Have a race war? It's almost like the further distance we put between us and slavery, the more people are aggrieved over it. And by the way, they know less and less about it, but let that go. It's to me amazing. It is to me absolutely amazing. So this is my 2 cents worth, and then I want to get your reaction. 617-266-6868 is the number. To me, context is everything. When you're teaching about the Pilgrims, when you're teaching about Plymouth Plantation, when you're teaching about what life was like in the 1600s, and you're trying to do an honest, real, historical reenactment, you don't change history to suit the needs of political correctness. And somebody should have said to that father, your young girl volunteered. We dressed her up. This is the lead strings that they used to have. This has nothing to do with slavery. It has nothing to do with demeaning or degrading anybody. And sir, with all due respect, you don't know what you're talking about. And to everybody who's upset on social media, you don't know what you're talking about. So this is what happens to a society, a culture, and a country that takes history out of the classroom. We don't know our past. And so when somebody tries to teach a little bit of our past, like these poor people at Plymouth Plantation, suddenly then we project modern political sensibilities. The politically correct left, our obsession with identity politics, upon these poor educators. To me, Bridgemont Elementary had no business apologizing. None. This wasn't offensive at all. Agree, disagree. 617-266-6868 is the number. Should Mitchell Elementary School in Bridgewater have apologized for the photo appearing to show this poor little black girl on leashes? I say absolutely not. Your reaction next. 227 here on the great WRKO. Okay, getting a lot of texts. You can text us, by the way, 680. This is a genius here. Check out this one, 617. Jeff, why didn't they put the straps on the little white girls then? Think outside the box for once. 617. Because the little black girl volunteered. You moron. She volunteered. So this poor instructor who doesn't see race and doesn't see color, she's now being targeted because allegedly she's now a racist for acquiescing to the wishes of this poor little 8-year-old girl who just wanted to participate and how the Pilgrims did things at Plymouth Plantation. It's only you liberals that see race and color everywhere. That's the problem. Carol in Bridgewater. Go ahead, Carol.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi.
I mean, Jeff, it's really something that he shouldn't have apologized for. I don't think that our town should. I grew up in Bridgewater. Let me tell you, it's such a different town since we got Swenson as the superintendent. He used to be assistant principal. I've had my run-ins with him when I went in about the history lessons, teaching about Muhammad being a peaceful prophet and everything. I forgot to sign out. I walked back in, and he was making fun of me, saying Allahu Akbar and stuff afterwards, after having a normal discussion. He's a complete moonbat. I always debate him, or make comments on things he does. My town is so liberal, and the Bridgewater State University affects a lot of our rulings in our town, too, with their stupid petitions.
Carol, I think you're dead on. Look, and thank you for that call. Look, I think this superintendent is, again, bowing to the gods of political correctness. And you know what's really amazing here? The police have had to be brought into the school. I'm not kidding. They have got police encircling that school all day and all night. I guess for fear of violence, or people are going to crash the school, or they're going to go after the teacher, or why are the police there? Over a photo? Which has nothing, literally nothing to do. Slavery, segregation, race, Nothing. Racism. Nothing. Because a couple of idiots took a picture completely out of context. Welcome to Obama's America. Let's take it to Evan Heidenrich in the newsroom. .236 here on the great WRKO. Okay, in fact, there's even breaking news now on this Bridgewater Elementary School story, which is just, it is heating up. It is going everywhere. Before I get to that, so here is the actual press release, okay? From the, from Derek Swensenson, the superintendent. So, this is what he wrote. This is what he sent out. Late Wednesday evening, one complaint. A complaint was received regarding a picture that a teacher shared with the parents of her students regarding a recent enrichment program. On Friday, October 13th, 2017, the Plymouth Plantation presented a lesson to third grade students. Through our investigation, it was explained by the Director of Education from Plymouth Plantation that a portion of the lesson focused on 17th century attire, 1600s, particularly the garments worn by parents, children, toddlers, and infants. Specifically, the garment worn by toddlers commonly used tethering straps to assist them when learning to walk, also to keep them from wandering, okay? It was a dual reason for it. We realized without this context added to the photo, this to me is unbelievable, that was shared by the classroom teacher, it could be perceived differently. Please note it was never the intent of the lesson to demean or degrade any one person or group. The Bridgewater Raynham Regional School District sincerely apologizes to the students, staff, and community at large for this unfortunate incident. Now, number one, what are you apologizing for? Like, what are you sorry for? I mean, forgive me. I hate to talk like this, but, for what? For idiots? No, really. Because you can see on the photo itself, no one's being chained or has got chains on them, or they're not chained up. It's an obvious garment strap, a garment leash that was commonly used in the 17th century. What is there to apologize for? Number one. Number two, you want to get historical? I'll get historical. There weren't any black people at the Plymouth Plantation. It's just a fact. So what if she turned around and said, well, I'm sorry, honey. I know you want to participate and put on the garments and, get involved and get dressed up and be like the little child here that they have to keep, from wandering off. But I'm sorry, because of the color of your skin, it wouldn't be historically accurate. So I can only get a white kid to do it. This poor instructor literally never saw race, never saw color, sees a kid who wants to, by the way, a happy kid smiling, who wants to participate. They're trying to make history fun for the kids. And so one guy, one idiot who knows nothing about the 17th century, knows nothing about Plymouth Plantation, knows nothing about how they dressed, knows nothing about how garment leashes were extremely common. And, you want to get technical about it. In much of the world today, I know this may come as a shock to many of you, in Africa, because again, they live in very harsh subsistence conditions, they also have leashes for the kids. They do. In Africa, in parts of Asia, in Mongolia, it's a practice common to this day. In fact, Brittany, you made a very good point that you can see this still on some playgrounds to this day.
Yeah, someone texted in and said, I see daycare workers walking around on the sidewalk around parks, and they got leashes on these kids. I've seen, I think it was at the zoo of all places, a person had a backpack on, and there was a leash, wrapped around the kid's waist, so that the kid couldn't run off. This is just so ignorant of this one person, and for the school to make a big deal out of it after literally just one complaint. You can see the picture that it's really not a big deal.
It's obviously not a big deal. And furthermore, let's be honest, if that child happened to be, quote, white, you think people would be up in arms? You think the Moonbats would be going crazy? You think Channel 4, Channel 5, Channel 7, Channel 10, Channel 25, the Boston Globe, Boston.com, everybody's freaking out over this. You think they would care? They wouldn't give a damn. They wouldn't care at all. But because one idiot complains, one, and yells, racism, suddenly everybody's got to start jumping. Now, who is that person? I want to give a hat tip to Turtle Boy. Whatever you think about Turtle Boy, at least he broke this story. So, the person who started this racial crusade against the Bridgewater Elementary School, that poor teacher, who may actually end up losing her job, is the daughter's father. He's the father. Helder Varela is his name. Varela. Helder Varela. And I've got to say this. I'm going to get in trouble for it, but if I'm not here to speak the truth, what's the point? I'm looking at pictures of this guy on Facebook. Let's just say this. Doesn't look like the sharpest tool in the shed. Let me just say this. I don't know. Doesn't look like he's got a very bright light bulb. Let me just put it to you like this. You look at him and with the baseball cap, I mean, just the way you could just look at this guy. You can see history is not his forte. 617-26. So because of this guy, everybody's apologizing. This woman may lose her job. Plymouth Plantation is in trouble. This to me is incredible. This is becoming an idiocracy. Not a democracy, not a meritocracy. We're really becoming an idiocracy. One idiot gets to veto it for everybody. I would love to see a school finally develop some cojones and say, Mr. Varela, maybe you see slavery, nobody else does. Your daughter volunteered. She learned a lot. She had a great time. The students had a great time. This is how they the leashes, this is what they did in the 17th century. You see chains, I'm sorry. I don't know what planet you're living on. Okay? Maybe a little less of the puff and a little bit more of the books, and maybe you'd be better in the head. Just my opinion. Get lost. We're trying to educate the kids. Instead, everybody's apologizing. 617-266-6868. Jerry in Weston. Go ahead, Jerry.
Well, Jeff, you basically covered all the bases that I called in for on your opening monologue. So I'm going to have to kind of spitball it here if you don't mind. First of all, I'm 58 years old. I was born in 1959. I have heard many times over the course of my life that racism is born out of ignorance. And I would say this is an example of that. As you so eloquently noted, this guy doesn't know his backside from his elbow. And I have professed for many years that those who live life and see things through a prism of racism truly themselves are the racists and the ones that we should be addressing. But, in my lifetime, I have seen two groups of people who have been indoctrinated to believe that everything that happens to them is not their fault, that everything that happens to them is because of somebody else's, either suppression or racism or something like that, and it has tainted them in their mental growth and has enabled them to use race as a bludgeon. And this is exactly what's going on here. This guy doesn't know his backside from his front side. The dress is appropriate to the period. He sees something and he just starts it off, and everybody's recoiling now because there's the bludgeon, there's the sword that he's pulling out, and everyone's like, not us, we're not like that, because they're afraid to even hear that word that begins with an R. You're right. What the superintendent should have done, if he had a spine and some male genitalia, was to sit this guy down and say, "What is wrong with you? What is wrong with you?"
Oh, Jerry, you nailed it. No, really, you nailed it. Look, and I'm going to say this to all of you, okay? And I include myself in this. I think we're partially to blame. I really do. Because when somebody yells racism, we become automatically so defensive. We suddenly, right away, oh, please don't call me that. Like, it's like, like being called a Nazi after World War II. Don't say it. Please don't call me that. Whatever you do, please don't call me that. I don't want that scarlet letter. Please. And so we immediately recoil. We immediately get into a defensive crouch. We immediately look to somehow appease. And I just think it's about time we said, no, enough. No. Like, I love the way you put it, Jerry. What is wrong with you? Really, I'm serious. What is wrong with you? Your daughter volunteered. This woman so didn't see race. I don't know what you're looking at. She said, "Sure, sweetheart, dress up." She's smiling. The kids are smiling. Everybody's having a good time. So because of you now, here's what's going to happen. They're not going to teach the kids about Plymouth Plantation. They're never coming back to that school. I guarantee it. So all the other kids now have to suffer because of you. Because you, with your reverse baseball cap, and I mean, you should see the Facebook photos of this guy. You, because you never picked up a book in your life. And suddenly now you've been inspired by Barack Hussein Obama to call everybody a racist. Now you ruin it for everybody. Ultimately, I blame us. I really do. When are we going to say, enough is enough? Paul, you're up next. Go ahead, Paul.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi.
I'm listening to your show. I've never called in before, but have you ever seen the movie Glory before?
Yes, I thought it was a great movie.
Yeah, so
I loved it.
There was one scene in it where Denzel Washington, he left his unit. He attempted to desert, not because he didn't want to fight, but because he wanted to get some food. Actually,
yes,
and he ended up being whipped. And
yes,
it was even in the movie they show that there was some. There was some problems with that, obviously, from the officers in the unit who were all white.
Yes, Matthew Broderick. I remember Matthew Broderick.
Yes, and Matthew Broderick. So, I was in a call. I was at my freshman year at Suffolk University, and we watched this movie. And I remember there was a woman in class that said, "Oh, that's horrible." And I said, "Well, you're interpreting it through the lens of what's obviously a totally inappropriate act, but that's how all soldiers were disciplined at that time for deserting." So it's this just people just can't understand that you can't interpret history through the lens of what we see as appropriate now. And if you don't learn history, you're damned to repeat it. And I can say that looking at this guy's picture, he probably doesn't even know what the 17th century is. Like you said, he's probably never picked up a history book in his life.
You nailed it, Paul. Great call. Thank you for that call. Look, he's never heard. Look, he doesn't know Plymouth Rock. I'm telling you right now, he doesn't know Plymouth Rock. He doesn't know Plymouth Plantation. He doesn't know the Pilgrims. He doesn't. I'll bet you the best steak dinner at Hanover Street Shop House. Okay, Brittany, can we try to get this guy on? Let's see if we can get him on. I'm even going to tell him ahead of time what the question is. The American Revolution. What's the date? That's all. I just want to know. Don't even give me the day. Don't even give me the month. Just give me the year. Just give me the year. When did the American Revolution take place? Hell, I'll do you one better. And I'm going to give you a 10-year margin. Take your pick. Within 10 years. Within 10 years, you got yourself a steak. This guy doesn't know the basics. He runs to school. He cries racism. And everybody now is in a panic. 617. And I'm the extremist. I swear, according to the Moonbats, I'm the extremist. 617-266-6868. More with your calls. Next. Josh in Framingham. Go ahead, Josh.
Jeff, how can you say anything about this guy by looking at a picture?
Well, you know what they say. A picture is. Well, I'll give you the answer. I'll give you the answer. A picture is worth 1,000 words.
what the hell are you talking about? Okay, so is it because he's got his hat on backwards? Is that what it is?
Well, it's everything. You have to look at all the series. You have to look. Well, no, relax. You have to look at all the pictures, and you have to look at his behavior. The moron goes to a school to complain about slavery when we're talking about the way they used to dress in the 17th century, and they used to have strap leashes. By the way, it's now just come out. They didn't even put the strap leash on the little girl. It was the two white girls that had the strap leash. The strap leash just was behind the shoulders of the little girl.
From the 1700s, I've never heard of a strap leash.
Well, that's because you don't know anything about history. Bye, Josh. You see what I got to deal with? A man of my learning, a man of my education. Okay, let me just throw one more log on the fire. So there is this Lynn coffee shop, the White Rose Coffee House, the owner of which has apparently said she's closing her business because of the firestorm created when her daughter, the store's manager, really said some nasty things about police on Facebook. Now, Brittany, I know you have a column up on this, up on WRKO.com. You obviously know that area very well. Salem, Lynn, those are your stomping grounds. Do you think the woman's business should have essentially been closed down because of the stupid comments of her daughter?
I don't necessarily think that the coffee shop should be shut down. I feel like eventually it would have happened, and I didn't realize it would happen so quickly. If you're offended by what the manager said, yeah, the girl was fired, whatever, just don't go. Just don't give that company your money. And I just think what the daughter, Sophie, said was just out of line, uncalled for. To police officers, to the police community, every police department, in Lynn, there's a deficit going on, and in a lot of local cities around here, the departments are understaffed. They're high crime areas. It's overpopulated, and it's not fair to, have this judgment of police officers with everything that has happened with Obama, Colin Kaepernick and everything. It's unfair to the cops. Just don't go. Just don't go. Well, and I suggest, I know that a couple of Lynn cops do listen to the show, and a lot of cops out there listen. If anyone says something like this, say, hey, come with me. Do a ride along with me for the night. And truthfully, I think that everybody's judgment would change on the job that cops do, and really, the job that they do, and they really do put their lives on the line for us. And the things that they put up with day in and day out is disrespectful.
Let me ask you, you're the daughter of a police officer.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you say something on the air that's inflammatory, provocative. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, reckless and insane, just for the sake of argument.
Yep.
Should your father be blamed for the actions of his daughter?
No, not at all.
So she fired the daughter. My understanding is right, the owner.
Yeah, she did.
She apologized and fired the daughter. It's, you can't blame the mother for the sins of the daughter. So why is this poor woman being forced to close down her business? I feel bad for this woman who's now lost her business.
Well, she says that she's being harassed, and sure, but I don't know. I didn't realize that it would happen so quickly that this woman would have to shut her whole coffee shop down. Just don't go.
Brittany's got a great column. I urge everybody to read it up on WRKO.com. Everybody, have a wonderful weekend. I'll see you all on Monday. Bye-bye.
The voice of Boston is you. 680 WRKO Boston, 93.7 WEEI HD2 Lawrence, Boston. It's 3 o'clock.